Welcome back. By the end of this video, you will be able to calculate enantiomeric excess and rotation values from polarimeter data, and you will understand what these numbers all mean. This is a polarimeter. From bottom to top, I have a flashlight, a polarization filter, a graduated cylinder filled with sugar water, then another polarization filter that I am rotating. If this tube was filled with pure water, you would not see a color change. But when it contains something chiral, rotating the polarizer produces this continuous color change. What matters here are not the pretty colors, but the angle at which light is rotated. The polarimeter measures how much the polarized light is rotated as it passes through the solution. That rotation is an angle. It is a specific measurable number, and that number depends on what is in the tube. Scientists have settled on using a specific color of light for this experiment, and it's at a wavelength of 589 nanometers. Why? Because a long time ago, we figured out how to make sodium arc lamps that give off just this one color. So fun fact, sodium burns bright yellow, so think the shade of old yellow street lamps, or more specifically, yellow fireworks. If I were doing this experiment with a sodium arc lamp instead of a flashlight that gives off white light, you would not see this color change. You would see darkness until you find that one specific wavelength. So we need to measure the difference in angles between the bottom polarization filter and the top polarization filter when that specific color of light is passing through it. This is called optical rotation, and it's where our enantiomeric excess calculations will start. But we also need to measure the path length. The path length is the distance through the solution that the light travels, because the farther it travels, the more it rotates. A standard path length through a typical polarimeter is 1 decimeter or 10 centimeters, but other lengths do exist. So what's happening here? Sugar is chiral. That means that a mirror image of a sugar molecule is not the same thing. Whenever you have a pair of molecules that are mirror images but not the same, they are called enantiomers. And in any pair of enantiomers, one of them is going to rotate light clockwise. It can be described as dextrorotatory, meaning rotating to the right, and the convention is to use positive for the angles, and you can even insert a plus sign in the chemical name if you want to specify that something is dextrorotatory. Now that mirror image, it's going to rotate light the same amount, but in the opposite direction. So it can be described as levorotatory, meaning rotating to the left or the counterclockwise direction. And those angles are going to be given negative signs, and you can put a negative sign in the chemical name. So let's think about what would happen if you had a perfect 50-50 mixture of two enantiomers and you put it in a polarimeter. They're going to rotate light the exact same amount, but in opposite directions. And those two effects completely cancel each other out, and you see no rotation of light. That specific ratio, a 50-50 mixture of enantiomers, is called a racemic mixture. No other ratio can be described as racemic, but perfect 50-50 mixture you can. Now, what happens if you have some ratio that's not perfectly 50-50, like let's say you have just a little bit more of that dextrorotatory enantiomer? You will get a net positive rotation, and that can be measured. Or if you have a little bit more or a lot more of the levorotatory enantiomer, you will get a negative rotation. So let's go over some terminology and variables. First, specific rotation. It gets a variable of lowercase alpha in brackets. And specific rotation, these are values that you can look up in pretty much any organic chemistry textbook. But it is the angle at which light is rotated with a path length of 1 decimeter or 10 centimeters through the solution and at a concentration of 1 gram per milliliter. Every once in a while you will come across a table where some of those values have changed, so read the fine print. But you might see a superscript and a subscript. If there's a superscript, it is specifying the temperature. So a standard temperature for these measurements is 20 degrees Celsius. The standard wavelength is 589 nanometers. So why did I just write a capital letter D instead of 589 nanometers? Well, you need a little bit of a history lesson for that, but those sodium arc lamps and that one really bright yellowish gold color they give off is historically called the sodium D line, so we abbreviate it as D. There is nothing wrong with writing 589 nanometers or specifying some other wavelength, but D is just the shortcut for 589 nanometers. So as an example, let's talk about S plus 2-bromobutane. Textbook specific rotation for S plus 2-bromobutane is positive 23.1 degrees. Let's talk about those units. Organic chemists like to either write degrees or nothing at all. Technically, the units should be degrees times milliliters over grams times decimeters. I have absolutely no idea why we don't write the proper units. If you can figure that out, go ahead and tell me down in the comments. But I do not like that no one writes the proper units, because when we go to plug values into our equations later, we can't double check our work by making sure the units cancel out correctly. So do yourself a favor and memorize these units if you like double checking your work by canceling out units. The value we actually measure through a polarimeter is called the observed rotation, and it gets a variable of just alpha. So to find this, you would take your polarimeter and you would measure the difference in angles between the two polarization filters, and you always need to be comparing the same temperature and the same wavelength. If you are using some other wavelength, some other temperature, you might need to find a different specific rotation table or measure the specific rotation yourself. But observed rotation is what you get through the polarimeter. Specific rotation is what you can look up in a textbook. So you've already had my wordy definition of specific rotation. Let's put it in terms of an equation. So specific rotation equals observed rotation divided by concentration times path length. But we need a specific set of units for all of these. So our observed rotation is in degrees. Yes, degrees for real, unlike specific rotation. Our concentration is in units of grams per milliliter. And our path length is in units of decimeters. Remember that 10 centimeters equals 1 decimeter, because that's a pretty common unit conversion you need to do here. If in the wording of whatever question you were trying to solve, you have some other units, you'll probably have to convert them into these first. So a closely related concept is called enantiomeric excess. So it is defined as the percentage of one enantiomer minus the percentage of the other enantiomer. And yes, I wrote enantiomers A and B and didn't specify which one is dextrorotatory or levorotatory, because that's something you need to figure out by logic later. Now, from here on out, I'm going to be abbreviating enantiomeric excess as EE, because that's just a lot of writing. But there is another way I can define enantiomeric excess in terms of an equation. So enantiomeric excess can be found from taking the observed rotation. That's the value you actually measure by using a polarimeter. divided by the specific rotation, that's the value you can look up in a textbook or online, multiplied by 100 to put it into units of percent. Let's jump into some example problems. In our first example problem, we will be finding observed rotation. A 1.20 gram sample of cholesterol with a specific rotation of negative 31.5 degrees at 20 degrees Celsius using the sodium D line was dissolved in 7.50 milliliters of chloroform and placed in a sample tube having a path length of 5.00 centimeters. What was the observed rotation? So, like every chemistry problem that exists, the very first thing you do is pick numbers out of the word problem and assign them to variables. So we had a specific rotation at 20 degrees C using the sodium D line of negative 31.5 degrees. We were given a path length of 5.00 centimeters. Now, remember that polarimeter data the standard is to be in decimeters, so I'm just going to go ahead and convert this. 1 decimeter is 10 centimeters, so I need to move decimal point one place to the left. New path length, 0.500 decimeters. As for our concentration, we weren't given a concentration directly, but we were given how it was prepared, so we can calculate it. This is 1.20 grams divided by 7.50 milliliters. This gives us a concentration of 0.160 grams per milliliter. And once again, like pretty much every problem in chemistry, you need to find an equation with these variables and probably one more to solve for. So that equation would be our definition of specific rotation. Specific rotation, in this case at 20 degrees Celsius using the sodium D line, is equal to our observed rotation divided by concentration times path length. So we have 4 variables. We know what 3 of them are. We are being asked to find the 4th one. We just need to rearrange this to solve for alpha. So that would be multiplying both sides by concentration and path length. So our observed rotation equals specific rotation times concentration times path length. Let's plug some numbers into this. What we have is observed rotation equals specific rotation of negative 31.5 degrees times concentration of 0.160 grams per milliliter times path length of 0.500 decimeters equals an observed rotation of negative 2.52 degrees. Quick follow-up question. Is this talking about something that is dextrorotatory or levorotatory? Only thing you need to pay attention to is, are the angles all negative or are they all positive? If they are all negative, it's levorotatory. We would be talking about a counterclockwise light rotation. Now let's do an example problem involving enantiomeric excess. A sample of 2-bromobutane has an observed rotation of positive 9.2 degrees. S plus 2-bromobutane has a specific rotation of positive 23.1 degrees at 20 degrees Celsius using the sodium D line as a light source. Calculate the percentage of each enantiomer in solution. So, like any other chemistry problem, the very first thing you do is pick the numbers out of the word problem and assign them to variables. So we have a specific rotation. Some of those numbers had to do with a specific rotation at 20 degrees Celsius using the sodium D line of positive 23.1 degrees. And we were given an observed rotation, that would be alpha, of positive 9.2 degrees. And using these numbers, we can calculate enantiomeric excess. So the equation I gave you for that, I'm abbreviating enantiomeric excess as EE, is observed rotation divided by specific rotation times 100 to put it into units of percent. So let's go ahead and plug our numbers in. We have an observed rotation of positive 9.2 degrees divided by a specific rotation of positive 23.1 degrees. And we are multiplying it by 100% to put it in units of percent. And if we were to calculate this, the result we get for enantiomeric excess is 40% with two significant figures. Now, right here, right now, is where I see most students in real life start to make mistakes. Pay really close attention to what that problem was actually asking you to calculate. If it was asking you for enantiomeric excess, you were done. It is 40%. But that is not what I was asking you for. I said calculate the percentages of each enantiomer in solution. So, if that is our goal, how much of the dextrorotatory enantiomer is there, and how much of the levorotatory enantiomer is there, what does this 40% actually mean? So, what it means is that there is 40% more of one enantiomer than the other. Remember, one of the definitions of enantiomeric excess I gave you was the percentage of one enantiomer minus the percentage of another. So we need to figure out how much of the dextrorotatory enantiomer there is. I'm abbreviating that as a plus. And how much of the levorotatory enantiomer there is. I'm abbreviating that as a minus. And what we know is that there is 40% more of one of these than the other. But we also know which one. We can tell which one there is more of based on whether our observed rotation was positive or negative. It is positive. That means there is 40% more of the dextrorotatory enantiomer. So we're starting this with 40% plus something. What we need to do is figure out what we are doing with that remaining 60%, as in 40 plus 60 is 100. That remainder is in a perfect 50-50 mixture, as in 60% is not accounted for here, 30% of it is of each of these enantiomers. So there is plus another 30% of the dextrorotatory, plus another 30% of the levorotatory. That gives us a total of 70% of the dextrorotatory enantiomer, 30% of the levorotatory enantiomer. Now, there are three things I do to double check my work in a problem like this. First, one enantiomer minus the other equals your enantiomeric excess. Take whichever of these is higher minus whichever of these is lower. In this case, 70 minus 30, and it should equal 40. That pass works. Second thing you do to check your work is add these two numbers together, and they should equal 100%. 70 plus 30 is 100%, so that works. Third thing we do to check our work is make sure that the excess enantiomer is the correct one. Observed rotation was a positive number, so we need more of the dextrorotatory enantiomer. If observed rotation was negative, there would be more of the levorotatory enantiomer. If it was exactly 0, you could skip doing all of this math, and it's just 50-50 racemic mixture. Now, if you have more than one chiral center, everything starts multiplying really fast, and you might want to watch this. Thanks for watching Chemistry in a Nutshell. If you feel that I've earned it, please like this video and subscribe to my channel.